I've had the same experience with accounting. You know, with our accountant tried very hard to keep us on MYOB, and we changed accountants in order to, we moved to Xero, and we've never looked back. You know, we've loved Xero. It's been very, very good for us. It's made us hugely more efficient. In the meantime, we've actually changed accountants again, and what used to be a very, very difficult and painful process to move from one accountant to another is now, hey, we don't like you anymore, we're moving to this one. That portability means that we are saving a lot of money, but also it means that our accountant, you know, the accountant we moved to didn't work out so well. It was a very low amount of work to move to the new one. But get advice, be aware of ulterior motives, check things out. You know, people will be normally more than happy to show you what they're doing and show you how things work, give you an idea of you know what's working well for them and what's not. And you'll find that it doesn't matter how kind of technical you are or non-technical, the intermingling gives you these ideas. I mean, it happens with us all the time. So, you know, we'll see customers using things like Google Apps or Xero or what have you, and think, oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that. So some of the products that we, you know, the thing about the cloud for the software industry is it has just exploded over the last 5 years. And there are literally thousands of products out there. A lot of them are free. A lot of them don't cost a lot. In fact, most of them don't cost a lot. But just finding out about them and finding out the good ones and how to use them and how to use them together, the best way to do that is to talk to people, find out who's using them. If you don't know someone who's you know, using what you're looking at, get online and have a look at. There's always you know, community out there, and you're always online. You know, so you can quite easily talk to. You know, if you're using Google Apps or using Xero, you can always find a user group online, and there'll always be chat groups where you can ask the really basic questions, or even better, you can search them and you can find out. You know, people have asked those questions before. You need to stick your neck out. You can find out what the answers were. Yeah. So getting advice. Ask yourself if you need to change. I mean, obviously moving to the cloud, we think it's a good idea, but there has to be a business benefit. You know, like anything, you're not going to do it just for the, you know, just for the sake of it. There is always a cost of any change, and you need to ask yourself, is that cost really justified? You know, for us moving from MYOB to Xero, for example, was quite an expensive exercise, simply because there was a lot of manual work involved in getting our. We did it during the financial year. There's a lot of manual work involved in getting everything synced and you know, our starting balances correct and what have you. Once that was done, we didn't have to look back. And for us, there was a good financial incentive to do it because we had to upgrade MYOB, and you know, the cost of doing that was not insignificant. It wasn't massive, but it was enough that we had a good incentive to move. If we had just upgraded MYOB, for example, then you know, it's unlikely we would have moved then. But do think about it. Do you need to change? And obviously, you know, we're all small business people. We're always very busy. You know, it's always a matter of, well, how long have the time for this? And you'll see in the slides that are coming up, you know, we do find that people often do underestimate the amount of time that's going to be required, especially if they're trying to do things themselves. And often they'll rush into things. And what you'll find is we always have customers who've got, you know, a mail archive sitting on the C drive of their PC, and they've moved to Google Apps, and they've got some files, you know, on their PC and some on iCloud and some on Google Apps. It's fine fit by design, but just you know, put the time in, get it done properly. You know, have you got the time now? If not, and it's not a significant enough reason to change, then my advice would be just wait a while. You know, don't rush into it. It brings us really nice to the next slide. You know, you think about what can you cloudify. Our business, and please do stop and ask me questions. I'm trying to get through 10 as quickly as we can, questions at the end. But our business is completely on the cloud. We don't do anything. I've got a Windows PC because I have to run Windows applications, but we don't have any servers in our company anymore. We don't have any disks of data anymore. If there's anything that's worth keeping, it's kept on the cloud. And believe me, we keep everything. If you send me a file, I'll keep it. If you send me an email, I'll keep it. If you tell me in 10 years' time that you didn't send me that file, you didn't send me that email, you better believe I'm going to produce it. And I'll produce it pretty quick too, because I can search for the stuff now, and it's fast, and you know, it's amazing how easy it is now to access that wealth of information. But I used to spend a lot of time culling. You know, I used to spend time reducing my inbox, attaching files, getting rid of old stuff. What a waste of time. You know, now I just let it grow and grow and grow, and we've got terabytes of stuff. But I trust that, and then trust is obviously a big thing here. I trust that Google are going to back that data up and protect it for me, and it's going to be safe and accessible. you might decide actually it's not such a practical thing. We do have a customer that we're just moving, and they've been a Google Apps customer for years and years, but they've got terabytes of engineering drawings, and we're moving all of those to Google Apps, Google Drive at the moment. And for them, it's just a matter of the drawers, the designers, and the people in the factory that use these drawings just have to be organised enough to mark which ones they need cached locally on their hard drives, and Google Drive will do that. So you tell Google Drive, these are the ones I want copies of, and then when you save a copy of it locally, the Google Drive client copies that back up to the cloud for you. They have a limitless, uncapped broadband, but they have had problems where they've had to up their broadband speed because they had what we call a 5 meg HSNS broadband before, and they found that suddenly it was becoming far too small for their requirements. But they've upgraded to UFB now. I think they're on 40 megs. Actually, it's costing them less than their old internet connection, go figure. And so what can you cloudify? I mean, my view is most small businesses, most things can be moved to the cloud. And indeed, this company are actually looking at the web-based version of AutoCAD, which I think is probably a few years before its time, and not quite ready prime time yet. But for them, the idea of not having to have CAD software installed on 20 machines costs an absolute fortune. And that software just costs so much money, and keeping it updated and keeping it, working and everything is just a real nightmare. The idea of running that through a web browser for them is huge. I think Adobe are doing a very, very good job with this. Is anyone in design?
Yeah, I use Adobe stuff from the cloud, and it's great. Yeah. It's fantastic. You're always up to date. There's no problems. Suddenly, as soon as they discover a hole or a bug or a security flaw, it's fixed, and you get it straight away.
Yeah. And do you store your files on the Adobe cloud?
No, I don't. I'm a bit paranoid.
Yeah, right, fair enough. But Adobe are an interesting company. Like Apple, they've been around, really since the beginning of the PC revolution. They invented PostScript, which is printing language, and have really just reinvented themselves time and time again. Their inventiveness and their ability to read, changes in the marketplace have been huge. They've even survived. They got offside with Steve Jobs. That's why you never find Flash on an Apple device, because Steve Jobs, he thought Adobe slighted them at one stage in the past, and he thought he'd doomed them to ruin. But they have done a great job of cloudifying their application suite. I think they've been very switched on, very forward thinking. I don't use their products myself, but we have customers who do, and they just swear by them. And some of those customers use Google Apps, but they insist on saving all of their illustrated documents and everything else that they produce through the Adobe products on the Adobe Cloud, because they just find it so easy. And if they share, one of them is in advertising. If they share big files with customers, it's as easy as a couple of clicks, and they've shared it in a couple of clicks, and they've unshared it, which is pretty standard these days. Dropbox, Google Apps, they all do that. But obviously, they're creating that file, they're publishing that file, they're sharing it, they're unsharing it, they're editing it again, all from the same interface, which is huge.
Adobe Cloud tools, are they free?
No, you have to subscribe, or you don't get it. And that's one of the problems that I face. Why I don't put my stuff on Adobe Cloud is because if I decide to move away from Adobe, what happens to my documents? And sure, I can download them and keep a copy, but if for some reason or other my credit card stops working, or the banks screw up, or Adobe screws up, then I've got no access to my stuff.
It is a real concern, especially because you put a lot of trust in these providers, but things do go wrong, and we have no. I mean, I've got a good understanding, a fairly good understanding of how Google's data centers work and how they call it their cloud file system with everything stored and works. But I have no idea how Adobe's works. I have no idea, how well Google's works. And I trust that they've got 2 copies of everything. That's what they tell me.
Yep.
If the server holding some of my critical documents actually dies and I lose those documents forever, that trust is something betrayed. I've got no way of figuring out beforehand. So that is something that you need to bear in mind, especially because there are a lot of pretty crappy cloud operators out there, both software providers and cloud infrastructure providers. So not really that relevant to us, but one of the recent examples is IBM, which is a company I've had a lot to do with. They provide a cloud server and storage service for enterprise customers, and their service went offline for about 3 days. Was it earlier this year or late last? I think it was late last year. And they had customers like the Localist running on them, and so Localist was down for 3 days. And not many people know this, but the reason why this whole thing went down is because they had this big, filthy great storage thing called a SAN that cost millions of dollars, and it has its own operating system. They've got to keep this thing managed and up to date and everything. They hadn't updated the software on this thing for years, and the software that was running had actually been withdrawn by the IBM labs. IBM told customers, you have to go out there and get rid of the software. It's buggy and it's dangerous. And IBM customers did it, and IBM made a lot of money doing it for customers, but they didn't do it on their own. And so it gives you an example of how dangerous it can be, especially if you're not technical. And I understand a lot about Google because I research a lot about Google, but the average business person isn't going to do that or isn't going to know. So we do cover this a bit more in the presentation as we go forward, is actually looking into those products and doing some due diligence. And as you go on through time, don't just trust. It might be that you've moved to a product, there might be something else better that comes along, or you might start to get a feeling of unease. If Google suddenly started, treating Google Apps like a second-hand, like a poor cousin, then I start to get worried about, am I going to have a good product to use, and is my data still going to be safe?
Well, I guess from my point of view, Google's got huge pockets, but Adobe's pockets by comparison is like a grain of sand.
That's exactly right. Yep. And we have customers running things like Vend point of sale software. So Vend are like a local startup point of sale, cloud-based point of sale provider, and they're a startup. They're just taking a round of funding of about $5 million, which is a huge amount of money for me. But for a software house, it's not a huge amount of money, and they really are living from VC injection to VC injection. So they're not profitable at the moment, and so using providers like that is a risk, because it may be that they run out of money and they fold. Our view is with providers like that, if they ran out of money, someone would buy them up and take the service on board. But there always is that risk there. By and large, you want to go for these larger operators. But then if you go for an IBM, for example, like Localist did, there used to be a line, no one ever got sacked for buying IBM. Yeah. It was a byword within the computer industry. Imagine how the IT manager at Localist is feeling.
Did he get sacked?
Well, actually, you know what, he actually got made redundant a year or so beforehand, because Localist hadn't been doing nearly as well as they had hoped. So.
That was a mainframe era type sort of.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But I think it's if you do work with IBM, you expect a level of quality of service and due diligence and everything else. But often when you lift the curtain, you'll find that what's behind it is very different to what you expect. And certainly if the full extent of what had actually happened at IBM can come out, and it's just one of many disasters, not from IBM but IT companies in general. The reason I like working with the smaller operators is because with Vend, for example, we have seen the technical detail about what they're doing. They've told us about the problems that they have, resource-wise, technical, what have you, and we've looked at it and we've made an informed decision and recommendation to our customer. But when you're not when you don't have the ability to do that, obviously you've got to be quite confident that what you're doing is going to be good for your business. So let's talk a little bit about the devices. It doesn't come to a surprise to anyone that the PC era is passing or has passed. I find this incredible. It took I can't remember the exact numbers, so you have to excuse any exaggerations here, but it took something like 25 years for about 500 million PCs to permeate around the world, and it's taken 5 years for 1 billion mobile smartphones and tablets, so smart devices, to permeate around the world. The change this is going to have to our planet is just incredible, because you've got villages in India who've never seen a telephone, who don't have a flushing toilet, now have smartphones. Companies in China will churn these things out for literally $50 US for a smartphone. It would be painful for you and I to use, but it has access to the entire wealth of information that's on the internet in the space of 5 years. Oh, 7 if you want to be a bit more generous. But yeah, well, but I find it very interesting, and I think what's happened in Egypt, I think the internet revolution has, maybe it's not responsible for that, but it's certainly helped move things along, because people are communicating now like they never have in the past. And what Google are looking at doing, which I think sounds like a brilliant idea, is putting these balloons up, hundreds of balloons into the stratosphere that are basically just going to fly around and give everyone free Wi-Fi, which I think for them is a brilliant business move because it unlocks a market of half of the population that can't access Google at the moment. But you can imagine if you're in somewhere like North Korea, where internet access is very hard to come by, there's no way of them stopping you from accessing a balloon that's flying over.
Yeah, they'll shoot them down.
That's a good point. And at the moment it's the realms of sci-fi, but then also, if you told me 10 years ago that someone would be sitting there with a tablet filming my presentation and streaming onto the internet, to me would have been sci-fi. People always ask me what's the next big thing in IT, and the last thing I ever want to do is make predictions, because we don't know. In IT, in fact, we're the worst to make predictions, because if you'd asked me 10 years ago what's going to happen in 10 years, it would have been a smaller, faster, better laptop. And look, no one's got a laptop on their laps at the moment. If we were back in the 90s, you'd see quite a few people just tapping away, to their laptops. Right? So devices, devices are very important. I spend a lot more time during some weeks communicating with this: email, chat, phone, internet access. This week, especially, I've been on the road. This thing has hardly come out of the bag at all. Figuring out your devices and figuring out what's going to be best for your move to the cloud is a really good idea. If I want to approve invoices, for example, I can't do that with Xero on my mobile. I can do it through the Xero web site on my mobile. That's a bit painful. So those are the kind of things. That's not really that important to me because I usually do it at the kitchen table anyway. But if I, if that was important, I need to figure that out beforehand. What are the devices that I need? What are the devices that I've got? Especially because moving to the cloud can let you sweat your assets longer. So Windows XP, it's amazing how many PCs out there run Windows XP. Is anyone running Windows XP? Do they know still? Yep. So in April of next year, Microsoft will withdraw support, and they're trying their best to scare everyone. Oh, April next year, no more support for XP. If you're running XP, you're going to be doomed. And there are some concerns. You've got to worry about, well, what happens if a virus or a new security vulnerability comes out? But the reason no one's moving to Windows 8 and Windows 7 and everything isn't because they're terrible products. I mean, they've got a lot of things they can improve on, but they're just still Windows. But there's no need to anymore. You're not upgrading your version of Office anymore. You're not putting ever increasingly resource-hungry apps on there. I've got a web browser that does most of my work, and I've got about, at a quick guess, I think about 50 tabs open at the moment. That thing chews a lot of resources, but not nearly as much as as the latest version of Office. If I had 20 web windows open like I used to, that thing would just kill my PC. So sweating your assets. It's a good idea to think about. If you're thinking about upgrading your PC or something like that, it's a good idea to stop and think. Well, actually, instead of upgrading my PC, what if I got myself a Chromebook, a cheap Google kind of web browser in a notebook, $500. Or what if I just bought a tablet, not get rid of my PC, but just to kind of, give me something that I can work with in addition to that. Because especially if you're out with customers, getting this thing out in front of a customer is basically doing the finger at them, right? You're putting this big screen up and you've got this thing between you and them. If you move around, you've got your little tablet, your phone, and you're showing them things or you're taking notes, people are quite happy with that. It's a lot more social and interactive. Okay, so we're rapidly running out of time. We're only up to 5. I'm not going to talk a lot to this slide because I think we've pretty much touched on it already. Do ask for advice. If you're not technical, you don't understand what, you're putting a lot of trust in your cloud provider. I'll give you an example. One was Snap Internet at home, and we changed banks, and we sent them a new direct debit form, and they didn't process that. So when they tried to process the direct debit from our last account, it failed, and that morning they cut our internet access. And for me, that's quite a major because before where I took off to the office, I've done a fair bit of work. We've got a family of 4 kids. Kids screaming, "No, no internet, Dad! What are we going to do? Let's go next door, quick, guys, run!" But that was in my office. you laugh. I was out of there. I was like, I can do without internet, but one grumpy wife and 4 kids, cheers, was far too much. But you know, if that happened in my office, it would have been catastrophic. You know, we've got a team of engineers who spend their day working with customers using the internet. So it's not just, you know, where we put our data and the applications we have, but thinking about all the providers that you're using. I mean, I'm quite lucky I've got a cell phone. As soon as the internet went down, I turned on my Wi-Fi hotspot and I was going, wasn't even those little blight, just used my camera course, but I wasn't really about it. Yeah, but think about your security and the availability of that service. Okay, now we're going to speed up a little bit here. Choosing your applications. I mean, when you're looking at your, you know, moving to the cloud, of course, if you're looking at the financial application, Xero for me is my favourite cloud-based accounting package. But there are other packages out there. So really think about it and talk to people. People get really hot and bothered and steamy about you know, IT stuff in general. You know, if you talk to an Apple fan and an Android fan and yada yada yada, this is best and that's best. It's all rubbish really, because what's best is what works best for you. But it is a lot harder, obviously, to rewind a decision once you've made a commitment and you move to something. Generally speaking, as we'll see, we move on, that cloud-based applications are a lot easier to move from cloud to cloud. So if I wanted to move from Google Apps to Office 365, for example, that's a lot easier than from moving from our old Microsoft Exchange server to moving to the cloud. So the friction is reduced a lot, but do avoid vendor lock-in. You'll find that there are often a lot of hooks involved. Especially, I would recommend avoid any cloud operator that wants you to sign into a 12-month contract. That's not cloud to me. To me, that's, you know, an old way of doing business. Yep. Xero don't put you into a 12-month contract. You know, they have faith that A, it's too difficult to move away, but B, they're going to produce a good enough product they're going to keep you there. And most important, my strong advice is set apps to work together well. You know, things like Google Apps and Xero and leading cloud applications like that will integrate with a lot of different products. So our job management system, our help desk system, our accounting system, and our email system, which is Google Apps, they all integrate very, very, very well and very powerfully. When I say powerfully, it's not something we need to spend a lot of time setting up. You know, if we want to attach a Google Apps email or a Google Apps file to a help desk job, it's 2 clicks of a mouse. You know, if we want to turn that help desk job into an invoice, it's 1 click of a mouse. It really is that easy, and it saves us a lot of time. And whatever business you're in, you'll find that the cloud-based products, a lot of them will integrate and give you a lot of functions that will save you a huge amount of time and effort. And we call them force multipliers, because if we wanted to integrate our healthcare system with our accounting system in days gone by, customers would pay us tens of thousands of dollars to do that. It would be a huge project. We'd have to write code, there'd be testing, and every time we want to make a change, yeah, sure, it can be another $5 grand. These days, you know, you've got the democratic power of cloud-based apps is huge, because it's the kind of thing you can do yourself or do with a couple of hours of professional help rather than, you know, a big long project. Now, planning your migration. Now, I know this sounds a little bit trite, but do, especially as a small business owner, do stop, take a step back, think your migration through, write it down. You'd be amazed at how many times people get themselves into strife and they'll call us up or go and chat to them. Okay, so where's your plan? It's up here, this is what I was going to do, and I thought I was going to do that next, and I couldn't quite remember what I was going to do then, and then I think I did this, and then it kind of all went a bit sideways, so I think I did that and the other thing, and it becomes very difficult, right? It becomes difficult for the customer, it becomes difficult for us, it becomes expensive very quickly. Whereas if you actually document out a plan, it's quite easy to buy someone like me a beer and say, hey, what do you think about this? You know, and you can have someone, even someone who's not technical, who's been through it before, look through that and say, hey, that's a good idea, this is a bad idea, I think you want to think about this, this is what we did wrong, this is what worked for us. That plan is not always a technical plan. You know, moving to Xero, for example, is a 5% technical project and 95% a financial project. So we help customers move to Xero all the time. If the customer doesn't have a financial specialist involved, we'll shake their hands and say, thank you very much, good luck to you, we're not going to get involved. Because as soon as things start going wrong in terms of, I haven't set this account up, or I need to know what the rules are around this kind of invoicing, blah, 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 we don't have that expertise, and we can't help them. Okay. Oh, look at that, we've got 2 sevens. I hope that means we're in 11 slides. I won't go through the slides too much detail because we're already over time, but I would recommend 2 main things: is give yourself more time than you think you'll need. Okay, as a small business person, time is very, very limited, and often, you know, some will say, I'm going to move to Google Apps this weekend. And that's very doable, but just make sure you give yourself more time than you need. Be prepared for things to go wrong. What if your email's not working on Monday? I don't want to scare people here because these migrations generally are quite easy to do, but what often happens is people underestimate the amount of work that's involved, the amount of planning, and then testing, because once you've been using Xero for a few weeks, it's a lot more difficult to go back to MYOB or if you've been using Google Apps, it's a lot more difficult to go back to your old email system because now you've got changed data in your new system. So when you made that move, test the hell out of it, make sure things work. If they don't, you can fall back, you haven't received any emails at the time you've got across, you haven't done any financial transactions, you can just wipe it out, go back to your old system, start again. This is more what I've done in migration if I've forgotten anything rather than during the presentation, so hopefully I haven't. But data backups are one of the key things that people forget about. My PC, all my customer documents, all my critical data is stored on Google Apps. I don't bother backing up my PC anymore. There's no backup on that whatsoever because I'm confident enough, and I have done this where thankfully I haven't lost any of my computers recently anyway, but I'm confident enough that when I move to a new machine, I can plug back into my Google Apps account, my Dropbox account, everything else, and everything is there. If you're not that confident, spend $5 a month on Backblaze or one of these other inexpensive backup applications because you'll never know. It might be that when you go to recover your PC, you find you don't need to recover anything from your backup, but most of the time you'll find that there's stuff on there that you need. I did say this last time, but it's always photos. We have people literally in tears because their work laptop is fried and they've lost years worth of good customer data, but the stuff that they're really upset about is their photos. And I would be too, because it was very difficult to lose your boxes and boxes of family photos before, but now in a flash it's gone, and people beg with us, please, we need that stuff back. And so if someone's stolen your laptop, I'm sorry, you can beg as much as you want until we find their laptop, there's no way. We had one lady who found a laptop and the person had very kindly gone and securely erased the hard drive for them in an effort to not get detected if the laptop got recovered. So she found the laptop, was so excited, and we went through, and even the forensic recovery couldn't recover a single bit of data. So integrating everything is something you don't have to do straight away, but I'm always, something we come across quite regularly is people using these cloud-based products and don't realise they can work together. Spend 3 or 4 hours creating invoices out of a system that they could actually just integrate with Xero and you have those created automatically for them, or copying customer details between the two. You'd be amazed at how many things Xero will integrate with and copy or replicate your customer details with. So you only have to create a customer once. Oops. Come on, keep moving. Sorry, I had a pop up on my other's window. So now, and then after the migration, again, this is another area where I say do ask people's advice and ask about people's experiences, because most of the people, I think just about everyone in this room is using the cloud to some extent or another. But often what you'll find is that there are things that you can do that you're not, integrations that you can achieve that you're not, maybe products you can add in. Backup ones, you hear me go on and on and on and on about backup, because it used to be to back up your PC on the cloud would be about $50 a month, and it was prohibitive. And so you'd use a USB drive. Now it is literally, it's actually $5 US, so about $7 Kiwi. It's so cheap that everyone should be doing it, and so we bang on and on and on about it because our view is it's so cheap now that why wouldn't you do it just in case, regardless of whether you think you need it or not. But do talk to people about what they're doing. This customer with the engineering drawings, for example, we encouraged them for years to move those drawings to the cloud. It's only when we gave them a quote for a new $10,000 server to replace their old one that they really started to think about it, and then they went and spoke to someone else who was doing this, and they thought, okay, now this is a good idea. So this has been a customer for 10 years. We told them to do it, they thought we were full of crap. As soon as they spoke to another firm that was doing the same kind of thing, it's a great idea. And last but not least, regularly assess. I don't go and phone up Xero on a monthly basis and ask them whether their data center is secure, but I do keep a close eye on on the press and information that's out there. when we've got customers who are on the cloud who use things like the Vend application I was telling you about, we do regularly talk to them not only about their their infrastructure and their security and things like that, but their service levels, their development life cycle, and that kind of thing. Now, if you're not in the IT business, that's obviously not the seat you're going to go to, but keep an eye on what's going on with your cloud providers, because companies do wax and wane. Nokia just got bought by Microsoft, and my personal view is that if they keep going like they were, give them 10 months and they're going to run out of cash and fall over. If you had told me 10 years ago that Nokia was going to go broke in 10 years, I would have checked you into a mental institution. They were like 20% of Finland's economy.
Wow.
Yeah, and now Microsoft bought them for $9 billion or something, which is it's a huge sum of money, but I think it's probably a fraction of what they're worth. So Google will, they've got their day in the sun now. I think Apple have just had their day in the sun and now starting to wane again. Things do change. I think I'll probably be on Google Apps for a decade. In a decade's time, it's going to be a very different company. And if they follow the same cycle all the other IT companies do, they'll be in decline. So.
What happens if a company collapses and they're storing the data?
It's really unprecedented at the moment. The best examples you can have, pretty much there. Well, it's Mega Upload is probably the best example where the Feds actually seize control. Yeah. Generally speaking, you'll find that if it's a company that's worth doing business with, if they go broke, then generally speaking, someone else will take them over.
Right,
and you'll often find out that Transfield aren't paying their bills at the moment. I would not be doing business with Transfield right now. And I'm not here to libel them and say that they're going broke, but the fact that they're in the media about not paying their bills means if I was a Transfield customer, I'd be making some pretty urgent decisions about what to do if they went broke. So, if Xero stopped paying their bills, or if Xero got into financial difficulty, they're a publicly listed company, you'll know about it. But only if you're watching. You'd be amazed at how many times things will happen and you go, I have no idea. But this is, you run your business with this application, surely you're watching, paying attention. That's pretty much it. So do feel free, I'll run over time, I apologise about that, do feel free to leave, don't feel trapped, but if you do have questions, I'm more than happy to hang around.
Thank you, Damien.
Is your notes available on to anyone else?
Yes, most definitely. This is a Google Apps presentation, so if I didn't bring any cards.